Haruto was a lonely, disgusting, bullied loser who was rejected by the love of his life because of his ugly face, and never saw his father again after discovering he was someone else's son. But before he knew it, his father drove truck-kun into his bus, ending his life in that instant. When he woke up, he realized that he was reborn as a guy called Ryo with an ugly face again, and the memories of his previous life kept flashing into his head. As he struggled to remember his identity, a bunch of men arrived with a huge bag and told him that he smelled like an anime convention before kicking him out of the house. While he picked berries to eat for the first time in weeks, memories of Haruto continued to run rampant in his mind. However, he decided that it didn't matter because he was now Ryo, and his life goal was to avenge his mother who was killed before his own eyes. After he was done eating the berries, Ryo put on his clothes, and a group of women came up to him, calling him a scrawny little ugly bitch. But Celia politely asked him if he saw their friend Flora. However, he told her that he's never seen her before, so Celia activated a magical spell to see if he's telling the truth, but notices an immense amount of pure aura emanating from his body. Seeing that he wasn't lying to her, Celia gave him some silver coins because of his information, and he quickly ran back to share it with his friends. But as soon as he entered the house, an assassin tried stabbing a dagger into his chest. The only thing that saved his life was the coin bag as he fell on the ground, only to see everyone else dead on the floor. As he was about to meet his doom, a woman called him Haruto and taught him how to use the limitless magic inside of him. Using his magical aura, Ryo strengthened his body and pushed back the assassin away with a palm strike. He adopted a karate stance that he learned from Haruto's memories and kicked the assassin in the face after dodging his attacks. When the assassin continued to be aggressive, Ryo twisted his arm and broke it. Enraged from getting defeated by a kid, the assassin approached Ryo yet again, but he got slammed on the ground. As he was about to finish him off, he heard the sound of a girl crying and realized that the item those goons were transporting was Flora. The princess was scared out of her wits and asked Ryo to take her back to the castle, but when she saw all the dead bodies in the room, she fell unconscious. There was no other choice for Ryo but to help the poor girl, so he carried her on his back and took her back to the ladies that came looking for her earlier. Flora's sister Christina blamed Ryo for kidnapping her and immediately got aggressive towards him. She didn't even give him a chance to speak, and Vanessa held a knife to his face, ordering him to come to the castle to explain himself. Ryo tried to tell them that he just rescued Flora, and she would tell them the truth when she woke up, but he had no other option other than to go to the castle with them. The knights captured the assassin later, and a mysterious person ended his life before he would reveal anything. Inside the castle, Ryo was tied up and started getting tortured by Charles as he beat him into a pulp. He kept trying to force Ryo into confessing that he kidnapped Flora so his own carelessness would be looked over, but the only crime Ryo had committed was having such an ugly face.
Damn!
Meanwhile, Princess Flora woke up and immediately ordered Vanessa and Celia to summon Ryo when she learned that he was being questioned. The two arrived at the interrogation room and were horrified at the sight of a poor defenseless boy at the brink of death. Charles refused to let him down, but he eventually had to, since Flora had revealed that he rescued her. After 2 weeks of being unconscious, Ryo finally woke up to Celia healing his injuries, and she told him that the king wanted to have an audience with him after saving his daughter. Dressed in formal attire, and with a proper haircut in ages, he bowed in front of the king and told him that he was the daddy now. As a reward for rescuing Flora, the king allowed Ryo to study in the Beltram Royal Academy, but his journey was going to be tough among the other kids who were all from royal families. Celia introduced him to everyone in the class, but most of the students looked at him in disgust. Ryo remained calm despite the spoiled children bullying him, and politely sat after introducing himself. He didn't want to let this chance go to waste, and went to Celia for private tutoring. Her room was a complete mess, and Ryo learned that she was brilliant, as she became a professor at the age of 12. Celia was surprised at Ryo for solving all the math questions perfectly, but Ryo had Haruto's memories to guide him through his life. The next day, the students took the combat class, and their instructor ordered Ryo to spar with him. He adopted the style that Haruto used when he was learning karate, and surprised everyone by keeping up with the instructor. When the instructor told him that he had the making of a knight, Ryo told him that he never wanted to become one. He continued to study even after his classes concluded, as the exams were approaching, and he wanted to finally be as smart as his peers. While the sun was setting, Ryo went to the courtyard, and memories of Haruto continued to flood in his mind. He remembered that Haruto had to leave his childhood crush when his mother found his father sleeping with a guy. But when he met her again at the high school, he only felt her slowly disappearing away from him. The day of the exam results soon arrived, and everyone bullied Rio for being the first in his class. But Princess Christina and Celia stood up for him. Celia was worried that the students were looking for ways to bring Rio down, as she faced enough bullying herself. But Rio didn't care about any of that, because she his only friend. She had the perfect height to hug Rio, but she got angry when Rio told her that it would be like hugging a boy because of her non-existent plot. 5 years had passed, and Rio was selected for the upcoming tournament where the students fight against the knights. Alphonse couldn't believe that a lowly imbecile like Rio was selected to represent the school in the nightly tournament. But the instructor told him to shut his ugly weasel face the f*** up. It had been 5 years since they first met, but Celia was still as small as ever, while Rio eventually grew taller than her. Since he had no plans of becoming a knight, Rio wanted to go on a long journey, as this country was hard for him to live in. However, Celia didn't want him to go, as she grew accustomed to being around him. He apologized for having to leave and reminded her that she would probably get married soon. But she had no intentions of getting married for a long time. Hearing that, Rio told her that only surfers would want her surfboard-looking ass body.
Emotional damage!
During the nightly tournament, Alfred, the referee, summoned Rio as the first challenger of the Beltram Academy, and fate took a weird turn when his opponent turned out to be Knight Charles. When their battle started, Charles immediately chased after Rio with a barrage of strikes, as he was humiliated and demoted because of him. But Rio remained calm and parried all of his strikes. As Charles continued to press on, Rio found an opportunity to knock away his sword, and won the duel by holding his wooden sword on his neck. Being the literal piece of shit he was, Charles wanted another round. But Alfred told him to accept his defeat as a knight gracefully. The next day in the school, Celia was waiting for Rio to arrive so she could congratulate him for winning the fight. But he went to a girl instead who confessed her love to him. The days passed, and one day during their lecture, Celia wanted the students to learn more about lightning magic, as it would deepen their control over their magic power. However, Alphonse felt like she was doing this only for Rio since everyone else could conjure this low-level magic easily. Irritated by that, Celia ordered Stuart and Alphonse to cast lightning, and told them that they hadn't mastered it yet, and went on to show them how to truly use lightning magic. When the class was over, Stuart stopped Rio from leaving, telling him to stop seducing the girls of this school, and even blamed him for flirting with Celia. But Celia shut him down as nothing like that had happened between them. One day, an outdoor military practice was held, and the class was told to move through the forest as a team, and reach the goal before the other teams. Alphonse made some soldiers who served in his region tell him about the shortest route, and ordered the class as the captain to take this route. Rio was ordered to carry everyone's luggage all by himself, and he happily agreed as he didn't want it to create a scene. Flora felt bad that Rio was going through all this, but before she could do anything about it, they got ambushed by some goblins. But the students defeated them easily. After the fight was over, Rio felt that someone was nearby, and Rias, the person who had killed the assassin, barely managed to hide himself from him, and decided to put Rio's true capabilities to the test. The students continued to walk, but they eventually ended up at the edge of a cliff. Out of nowhere, orcs hurled spears at the students and one of them hit Stuart's leg. Being the pussy that he was, he limped around and accidentally threw Flora off the cliff, but Rio jumped to save her and fell in her place. The students then got into their position and quickly eliminated the orcs while Rona healed Stuart's leg. Despite not being able to cast magical techniques, Rio had a strange power in him he didn't know about, but it allowed him to use magic nonetheless. With the orcs defeated, Stuart put all the blame on Rio and told everyone that he was scared of the monsters and pushed him into Flora. She tried to tell everyone that he was simply trying to save her, but her words had no effect on the bullies. As they were about to go away without Rio, Flora wanted to stay behind and look for Rio even if she had to do it alone. But before she could do anything, a minotaur appeared out of nowhere. Christine casted a thunderbolt on the monster, but it didn't have any effect, and the students continued to press on the monster. But the monster turned out to be too tough for them, so they decided to retreat. While Flora was healing an injured student, the minotaur reached out to grab her, but Rio cut his arm before he could do that. He told Flora to take the injured student away, and battled the monster alone. He knew that the Minotaur was strong, and he had to be on guard all the time, so he continued to parry all of his attacks, and found an opening to cut off its head. Before the others arrived, Rio escaped into the woods, as he didn't want to reveal himself, and Rias felt entertained looking at the boy who could use spirit arts. At the Royal Academy, Celia learned that Rio was being blamed for putting the princess's life at risk. As she was sitting in her room worried, Rio arrived secretly and told the truth to her. But even if he decided to plead for the trust, it wouldn't do much good as the nobles decide what is right or wrong. He thanked Celia for everything she had done for him, and promised to write her letters, as he planned to flee to the Yagumo region. Holding her tears back, Celia hugged Rio for the last time, and ordered him to stay out of danger. But when he went away, she couldn't help but shed tears remembering all the lovely memories she had made with him. It had been 3 days since he left the royal capital, and he safely reached the kingdom of Galark. Since wanted posters of him circulated in the Beltram kingdom, it was difficult for him to procure the items he needed, but they hadn't reached this kingdom yet. While going through the town, he felt like someone was following him, but he just brushed it off and told himself that he was just being too careful. He stumbled upon a pasta stall and learned that Liselot, who governed this region, had invented this dish. As he ate some of the pasta, he wondered if Liselot also came from the same world as Haruto, as the flavor gave him nostalgic vibes. There were still a lot of things that he had to buy, so he went to a nearby merchant guild, and when he arrived there, Lot told him to put away his sword. Liselot was actually disguising herself as Lot to move around the town, and showed Rio around the merchant guild. While he waited in a room chugging his tea, Lot arrived with the 25 kilos worth of food items he had bought, and wondered how he would carry all this by himself. But Rio had a lot of physical training, and told her to not worry about it. Looking at him drinking the black tea, Lot asked if he was accustomed to its flavor, and seemed excited when Rio explained all of its flavor to her. Having bought the items he needed, Rio continued his journey through a forest, and found a beast girl named Latifa lying dead on his path. However, she was just faking it, and hit Rio with a poisonous dart when he checked on, but he quickly got rid of the poison using his spirit arts, and started to fight with her. Latifa threw kunai at him, but Rio dodged them to get behind her back to throw some kunai himself, but she managed to escape on top of a tree. Latifa enhanced her physical abilities using magic as if she wasn't strong enough already, and Rio continued to chase after her, and after noticing his speed, she wondered if he was even human. Rio dodged her attack at the last second as they continued to clash against each other, and slammed her into the ground. He held her down as she started to panic and beg for her mother, so Rio just put her to sleep using his magic, and tied her up. He noticed a collar of submission around her neck, and remembered reading about it in a book, so he imitated the steps to dispel the collar and removed it. She was the little child in Haruto's bus when it crashed into the train, and reincarnated as Latifa. However, the horrors she faced might even be scarier than Rio's, as Stuart from Rio's class had put the collar of submission on her, and forced her to call him brother. She didn't want to, so Stuart activated the collar to teach her a lesson. She screamed in pain, and begged for him to stop, but watching all the stepsister adult movies had made him a degenerate, and he refused to stop the pain until she called him brother. Afterwards, Rio woke her up from her slumber, and told her not to get violent again unless she wanted to die. He showed the collar he broke, and told her that she didn't have to live in pain anymore. Feeling the sense of freedom for the first time, Latifa burst into tears, and was ready to confess everything to Rio. He wanted to know which house gave her the order to come after him, but Latifa only knew the name of the human who trained him, and that was Stuart. Knowing what he needed to, Rio freed her from the bindings, and told her to go to the wilderness where people like her lived together. Since he was going that way himself, Latifa started to follow him, but Rio didn't trust her, as she could attack him anytime again. So she told him to put the collar back on her if he didn't trust her yet, as she was more scared of being alone. But Rio decided not to do that, and agreed to let her come with him. During their journey, Latifa ate sandwiches for the first time in a while, as that Stuart used to give pet food to her. After crossing the border, Rio made camp at night, and made some pasta for her that she referred to as spaghetti. Hearing her call it spaghetti made Rio wonder if she was from Haruto's world, and when Latifa begged at night to go home back to Tokyo, Rio instantly realized that she was from Haruto's world, and comforted her during her sleep. She woke up in the morning, and asked if she could call him Oni-chan. Rio understood the harsh slave life she had lived after reincarnating, and agreed to let her call him Oni-chan in the hope that it would make Latifa's life a bit better, even if it would just be a little. The two continued to travel for weeks until they reached a big tree that only Rio could see. The two made their way to the forest and decided to rest in the woods for the night. But Latifa was troubled because of her nightmares, so Rio used his spirit arts to make her feel better. Suddenly, the flames in his camp got blown out, and a huge wolf exploded into a ball of light to blind his vision. A few demi-human girls arrived and started to attack Rio, but he barely managed to defend himself and used his spirit arts to get back his vision. He tried to talk to them, but they looked into his camp to see that some spirit art was used on Latifa to make her sleep. The girls thought that he had kidnapped her, and Uzuma hit Rio without giving it a second thought. Rio tried to use his healing spirit arts, and the girls continued to press onto him while Rio tried to explain the truth to them. But the girls refused to listen to anything he said, and restrained him to knock him down with a lightning jolt. In the magical dimension, Rio met the fairy again and asked about who she was, but she didn't know her identity. However, she knew about his real identity and called him Haruto. The fairy didn't know much about Rio, but she knew that she was connected to him and her existence belonged to him. She disappeared after giving him a hug, and Latifa came to him crying. The village elder, Ursula, apologized to Rio for treating him harshly, and all the other girls bowed in shame as well. But he didn't need their apology as long as their misconceptions about him were cleared. Ursula offered to let them stay in this room for the night, and told him that he had a meeting with the elders tomorrow. The next morning, Rio went to the giant tree to attend the council of the elders. Sildora greeted Rio, and all of them apologized to Rio for the misunderstanding, and thanked him for saving one of their kin from the shackles of slavery. However, Rio also apologized for stepping into their domain thoughtlessly, and felt bad seeing the elders bow to him. The elders wanted to offer Rio something as a sign of gratitude, so Rio asked them to take Latifa under their care. The elders agreed, and offered him to stay in the village as well. Dominic wanted him to marry one of the girls, but Rio said that his Excalibur would only unsheath for the girl he loved. With their conversation coming to a close, the spirit of the giant tree, Dryas, made her appearance, and sensed the presence of a spirit within his body that he had made a covenant with. Dryas mentioned that a spirit in a covenant sucks out all the magic from its host, and renders him unable to use magic, making Rio realize that he'd been getting bullied all this time for no reason. Dryas wanted to look at the spirit inside his body deeply, and held onto his head. She felt that a person-shaped spirit of the highest rank was living inside his body, and it was completely rare, as most of the high-class human spirits went missing in the Divine Demon War over 1,000 years ago. Hearing all this, the elders decided that they needed to treat Rio as a saint, and gave him special privileges. Sarah took him to his tree house, and Latifa immediately hugged her beloved Oni-chan. She didn't have a proper home her whole life, and was surprised that this home had a hot bath, balcony, and a kitchen. There was some delicious food waiting for him on the table, so he ate it with others, and learned that the Beast Girls were going to be living with him from now on. He didn't want that, but understood the reason behind it when Ursula told him that it would be better for Latifa, as she would have people to take care of her. Over the next few months, Rio practiced spirit arts with the villagers, and spent most of his time trying to understand their culture, and even sparred with them from time to time. The seasons continued to pass, until the day of the Grand Spirit Festival arrived, and Dryas commenced the festival under the giant tree. But somewhere else, two men traveling in a griffin arrived at a dragon's cave. Rias went inside to get a wyvern's egg, and told the man to carry it while he piloted the griffin. As the two took off, Rias looked behind him, and saw a swarm of wyverns flying towards them in the distance. It had been a year since Rio and Latifa came to this village, so Dryas gave them a kiss on the head to officially welcome them as the residents of this village. The crowd held a round of applause, and the festival started to begin. Seeing all the drunks, the harem genre began to activate, and the girls wanted to cling onto him to deepen their relationship like he was going to go deep into theirs. Almo told them that going for his Excalibur wasn't the best way to deepen their friendship, but the girls wanted him to rail them with his train. However, Rio told them he had a bad history with trains, so the girls called him ugly anyway. After they went away, he talked to Ursula, and said that it was time to announce his departure to Latifa. Meanwhile, Rias told his subordinate to rest at night with the griffin while he would go to investigate the area. He gave him an artifact that would allow him to pinpoint his location, so the subordinate ate it. He went up in the air, and saw the wyverns approaching the egg, and thought that his plan was working as he intended. Rio took Latifa for a walk, and asked if she enjoyed living here. She felt happy in this village, as she had made a lot of friends here, and everyone treated her kindly, which made Rio feel happy. He told her that he was going to leave the village to continue his journey into the east, and he couldn't take Latifa with him, as he didn't know what was waiting for him there. But Latifa realized that he was going to abandon her like the others, and ran away crying. The villagers had detected the presence of wyverns and summoned their army to investigate it, while Rias went deeper into the wyvern's cave to take the rest of their eggs. The girls noticed a man sitting alongside a spring with his griffin, but the man held a knife in his hand and escaped on the griffin. Yuzuma tried to bring the griffin down with lightning bolts, but the man dodged it. However, he got attacked by a wyvern right after and managed to barely avoid it as well. Since his role was over, Rias activated the artifact, causing the man to bleed out of his mouth and fall towards the ground with the egg. The egg landed right in front of Latifa, and it broke, so she investigated it to see what it was. But the wyvern leader also arrived there and roared after seeing what happened to its child. The wyvern yeeted Latifa into a tree with his tail and attacked her with his fire breath, but Almo managed to stop it using her wind tornado. She used her beast familiars and attacked the wyvern, but it was too tough for her to handle alone, so Latifa tried to help her out and attracted the attention of the wyvern. However, she got startled when a tree fell in front of her and she was about to get crushed by the wyvern, but Rio stopped it using an icicle. After carrying her to safety, Rio used his spirit arts and battled the wyvern with his bare hands. The wyvern let out its fire breath, and Rio put it out using a wind gust, but it didn't have any effect on it. And as the wyvern was about to charge its ultimate attack, Rio launched a huge fireball into its mouth and closed its mouth to fry the wyvern's brain from inside. Seeing their leader defeated, all the other wyverns started flying out of there, and everyone was surprised to see Rio soloing the wyvern. But he told them that the wyvern just had a skill issue, and it needed to get good. Latifa hugged her Oni-chan for saving her, and the next day, she apologized to him for acting goofy, and told him that she was scared of him leaving, as she thought that she was a hindrance to him. But Rio comforted his little sister, and told her that he was going to the Yagumo region, as it was the land his late parents came from. It was the first time he had told something to her about himself, so Latifa wanted to do the same, and told him that she was a human in a place called Japan, but she died and reincarnated into the person she was now. She didn't think that Rio would believe her so easily, and was surprised to hear that Rio was from Japan as well. He was telling her this now, as the lingering regrets from his past haunted him, and he would be lying if those regrets didn't affect him still. But he wanted to cherish his new life and grow strong. So Latifa vowed to grow strong as well, and told him that she would be waiting for him to come back. The villagers gathered to wish him goodbye, and the dwarf elder gave him a sword made of mithril that could absorb spirit arts, and a black wyvern armor with the highest defensive stat. He also received a lot of food and medicine, and to carry all of the stuff, Sildora gave him a national treasure of their village that he could use to store all the items in a pocket dimension. He promised to come back if the village ever faced any danger, and everyone wished him goodbye, with Latifa giving him a tight goodbye hug. But she couldn't help but cry her heart out when Rio finally left. It had been 2 weeks since Rio had arrived in the Yagumo region, but he found no information about his mother and father. He talked with 2 girls working in the field, Ruri and Seiya, and asked them if they could take him to the head of their village. Seiya was holding an eggplant in her hand and wondered how Rio's eggplant would look in its place. Ruri revealed that the head was her grandma, and the 2 girls took him to meet her. Rio politely greets Yuba and told her that he had come to this village to look for someone. When they were all together, Rio told Yuba that he was the son of Zen and Iam. Hearing those words shocked her, and she told Ruri and Seo to get the fuck out of there. She wanted him to give her more details, so Rio told her that Zen died before he got old enough to know him, and his mother, Ayame, was murdered when he was at the age of 5. He came to this village, as he and his mother promised each other to come here, and he wanted to make graves for them. Yuba mentioned that he had the looks of his parents, and revealed that she was his father's mother. She thanked him for coming here, but she couldn't do much for him as his parents' graves already existed. The two visited the graves so Rio could pay respect to his parents, and he learned from Yuba that his parents had to leave this country in secret for certain reasons. And since there was no possibility of them coming back, she made the graves of them here. He wanted to know the reason why they left, but Yuba couldn't reveal those reasons, but told him that she might do it when the right time arrived. She then told Rio that Ruri was her cousin, and ordered him to stop being so formal with her. In the morning, Rio woke up early in his Alabama home to make breakfast for everyone, and was greeted by the sight of Ruri's plot. He chopped the vegetables for the miso soup he was making, and used his spirit arts to make Ruri climax. Seo and her brother Shin arrived soon after, and they all sat together to enjoy Rio's meat. After they are done eating the breakfast, Ruba ordered Shin to take Rio to hunt. There was dirt all around his body, so Rio decided to make a bath house for himself to clean himself, and Ruri and Seo tried their best to get a look at their destiny. After he was done taking the bath, Ryo told the girls to keep their floodgates in control. And Shin arrived soon after, thinking that Ryo was just trying to show off by making this bathhouse. The days of the harvest arrived, and the crops turned out to be great this year, so Yuba asked Ryo if he could act as a guard for the crops they would be sending to the kingdom. But their conversation was interrupted when they learned that Shin was fighting some guys from the neighboring village. 3 menacing-looking men arrived at Shin's house, as their cart had broken down, and Gon mentioned that Ruri and Seo grew a lot from the last time he saw them. Enraged by this, Shin was about to throw hands at Gon, but Ruri didn't want him to do that as Gon was the son of the neighboring village's head. Gon wanted to stay at their house until his cart was fixed, and wanted Ruri to use this time to get to know her future husband. Hearing this, Shin lunged at him with a punch, but Gon blocked it using his hand, and held him in the air by grabbing his neck. Yuba soon arrived, and ended this fight by allowing him to stay in this village at the guest house, but she doesn't want him to leave it at any case. As they were heading back, he saw Ryo, and thought that he was ugly, so he decided to trip him by hitting his leg, but fell on the floor himself thanks to Ryo's rizz aura that always surrounded him. At night, Gon revealed that he broke his cart intentionally, and wanted to do some frisky things tomorrow. The next day, the tax examiner, Hayate, came from the kingdom to examine the crops made in this village. Ryo was training his Hulk body in the evening, and told Ruri and Seo, who were watching him secretly, that he could detect their horniness from a mile away. The night arrived soon, and Gon secretly went to Ruri's and Seo's room. He held Ruri's mouth and told her not to struggle, but when Seo woke up as well, he threatened to hurt Ruri if she told anyone. However, the detector of lust knew this was happening, and beat Gon's subordinate, but when he looked at Gon on top of Ruri, he remembered how his mother was killed the same way, and yeeted him out of the house. The only Gon Ryo recognized was from Tekken 3, and he continued to carve his face with his punches until Hayate arrived and held him back. After learning that he was trying to assault Ruri and Seo, he vowed to make him pay for his actions in the kingdom. It was the second time Ryo wanted to kill someone, and he thought that he had this feeling inside him all the time. But recently, he had pulled closer to Haruto's personality too much, and turned his eye away from revenge. So he reminded himself that he was the same man he always was that wanted to take revenge on his mother's killer. The next day, Hayate told everyone that a messenger came from the kingdom, and Gon and his subordinates would get imprisoned. Ryo apologized to everyone for the trouble he caused yesterday, but Yuba knew that he was just doing that to protect the girls, and Hayate told him that he would have done the same if he was in his position. The following day, Yuba gave a letter to Hayate, and told him to give it to his father Gauki, so he vowed to do it, and all of them embarked on their journey to go to the kingdom of Karasuki to deliver the goods and the prisoners. Gon and his gang were sent to the kingdom's jail, and Ryo roamed around the capital with Seo. They ended up in front of a stall, and the girl suggested to Ryo that he should buy some gifts for his girlfriend. Seo panicked hearing this, and told her that they weren't together, but the girl found them cute together, and wanted them to bring back a souvenir from the kingdom. So Ryo bought Seo a pink flowered hairpin, and before they went away, the girl told Seo to do her best to make Ryo hers, as a lot of girls must be after that boy. They went to the town center, and saw a man trying to kidnap a girl named Kimono, so Ryo jumped in and slammed the kidnapper into the ground to save Kimono. Her guard ran over to thank Ryo, but he left instantly as he didn't want any attention. The girl's father Kimono told Hayate that someone tried to kidnap his sister, but a mysterious person saved her. Hearing this, Hayate got shocked, but he felt assured that his sister was safe and passed on the letter to Gauki that Yuba gave to him. He read the letter, and with his hands shaking, he asked Hayate if he met a man named Ryo. He met Ryo in the evening, and invited him to his house to tell him that he was once an attendant to his mother, the former princess of this kingdom. He was shocked hearing that his mother was royalty, and Gauki told him that 20 years ago, his father, Zen, commanded the kingdom's army in a war, and because of his exceptional skill, the king gave him the rank of a warrior noble, and made him the guard of his daughter Ayame. As time passed, Ayame took a liking to Zen, and a truce was negotiated among the kingdoms. But the attendant who came fell in love with Ayame, and ordered his attendant to abduct her in the night. However, Zen managed to save her and accidentally killed him, so the ambassador demanded for Zen to be executed and Ayame to be married to him, in return for the peace negotiation. With no choice left in his hands, the king arranged for his daughter to run away with Zen, and they never had any contact with them since then. However, all of that changed today, as Ryo had arrived in the kingdom, and Gauki begged him to meet the king and the queen. Ryo agreed, and met with his grandparents formally, but they wanted him to chill out, and told Rio that he looked exactly like their daughter. They wanted to know everything about Zen and Ayame, so Rio told them that they had died. However, they still wanted to hear how they lived and died, so Rio told them that he never got to know his father, and his mother always smiled beautifully no matter how much Zen's death saddened her. But she also died when he was just 5. The person who killed her was a man named Lucius who worked alongside his father. On the fated day of his mother's demise, Ayame left the house and told Rio not to open the door for anyone. But when Lucius arrived, he opened the door as he had known him since he was born, but he kicked Rio into the table and made him drink a potion that dulled his senses. His mother arrived and demanded Lucius to explain his actions, but he just killed Ayame. That was the last memory Rio had of his mother, as he woke up in the slums afterward and lived his life as an orphan. Rio could never forgive the man that killed his mother, and even though he knew his mother wouldn't want him to take revenge, he would still kill the man whenever he would come face to face with him. The king wanted Rio to train and ordered him to spar with Gouki, as he was the strongest person in the kingdom. He visited the sparring ground with Gouki, and his wife and Kimono and her guard were also present there, and they learned that Rio was the angel that saved their daughter. When their sparring began, Gouki was surprised at Rio's strength and wondered how strong he would be in his prime. He continued to trade blows with Rio, but he was at a disadvantage, so he gathered magical energy around his sword and hit Rio with his secret skill Air Slash, but Rio countered it with his water spirit art to blind him and ended the duel. Seeing his overpowered grandson, the king realized that the level 69 420 Rizz Lord didn't need any training, but Rio was glad to fight with someone as great as Gouki and told them that he wanted to go back to his village to tell his cousin about his lineage. When everyone who went to the kingdom came back, Rory noticed that Rio was nowhere to be seen, so Seo pointed at his parents' grave as he was there. At his parents' grave, Rio vowed not to run anymore from his destiny, and in order to protect the people he loved, he would accept the ugliness within himself. After visiting his parents' grave, Rio told Rory about him being a prince of the kingdom, but she didn't believe him at first, and thought that they were just trying to tease her. However, Yuba cleared the doubts in her mind, and she started to call him Daddy Big Dong. Rio then revealed that he was planning to leave this village next year to return back to the land he grew up in, but promised to come back. The next morning, Rio met all the girls, and Rory called him Daddy in front of everyone, so Seo wondered when she would get the courage to call him Daddy as well. The seasons passed, and Rio continued to help around the village, and when the spring came, he helped everyone to plant seeds in the soil. Rory planted the seeds just as he told her to, and wondered when he would plant his seed in her fertile soil. After telling her to keep up the hard work, Rio helped out Seo, and told her that he would be leaving this village when the harvest festival ends. Hearing this caused tears to come out of her eyes, but she acted like some dirt got in her eyes and continued to work. She went home and cried her heart out, making Shin wonder if that imbecile Rio had done anything to her. But he learned that he was leaving the village soon. He instantly went to Yuba's house and begged Rio to stay in the village, but Seo arrived and told them to forgive Shin for acting like a beggar. To cheer her sister, Shin brought a gift for Seo and told her that there are plenty of more dicks in the sea. Sorry, I meant plenty of other fish in the sea, but Seo only wanted Rio's, so she worked hard in the day and practiced her swordsmanship in the night to strengthen herself to travel with Rio. When the day of the annual festival came, she asked Rio to talk privately with her and expressed her feelings by telling him that she was in love with him. She had worked hard and practiced her spirit arts every day for 6 months, so she wouldn't slow him down, and asked Rio to take her with him. But Rio rejected her, saying that she should have used the last 6 months to work on her ugly face, and went away.
Yo, that one there was a violation. Personally, I wouldn't have it.
He noticed that Shin was eavesdropping on their conversation, so he apologized to him as well for hurting his sister. When Rio went away, Gouki arrived and asked Seo if her love was strong enough to cast aside everything else for him. She hesitated at first, but told him that she was willing to do everything for him. It was time for Rio to leave, and he was about to move out of the village, but Seo was waiting for him and wished him a safe journey, saying that she would do her best to get strong. Going back to the Beastman village, all his harem girls arrived to welcome him, and Latifa immediately hugged her beloved Oni-chan. Sitting with the elders, he filled his belly and asked if they could build a house for him that he could take anywhere in the space-time cache he had. So they told him to enjoy his time here with Latifa and the other girls, while the dwarf elder would construct the house for him. He went back to the tree house and told all the girls that they have grown into beautiful ladies and that he would be happy to have them in his harem. In the morning, Rio woke up and screamed as the fairy was in his bed naked. The girls heard the screaming and came to check it out. Seeing him in the bed with the fairy, They thought that he was developing plot with her, but their doubts went away when the fairy revealed that she was a spirit, and didn't know why she was here herself. Rio realized that she was the spirit that Dryas spoke about, and asked how she formed a covenant with him. But the spirit doesn't know jack shit about anything, and wanted Rio to give her a name. She kept calling him Haruto, so the girls asked Rio about it, but he told them that he would explain it later. She began talking to him telepathically, and asked if he wanted her to call him Rio instead, but he was fine with anything. The girls recommended him to take her to Dryas, as she was a person-shaped spirit herself, so the fairy got up, and Rio saw the most beautiful plot in the history of anime. But she quickly covered herself with a magic dress, and Rio named her Asia as he thought of a beautiful spring when he looked at her plot. And Asia translated to a beautiful warm spring in the ancient language. Rio took her to the elders afterwards, and Dryas sensed that a powerful spirit had come into the village, so she appeared as well. She was surprised that she didn't know a thing about herself, except that she was Haruto's bonded spirit. The elders and Dryas were surprised to hear her call Rio Haruto, so he came up with random bullshit to make their mouths shut. It would be better if Dryas knew what kind of spirit she was, so she asked what element she was best at. But Asia told her that she had mastered all the elements, and had also mastered the art of sucking dick. To test out her powers, they planned for Rio to fight her, and as the duel commenced, Asia attacked Rio at lightning speed with the same style as Rio's. He decided to take the battle in the air, but Asia followed him there as well, and nearly tore his arm off. He then launched an icicle at her, but Asia disappeared to appear behind him, and launched an icicle herself, but Rio blocked it with a fireball. He summoned a violent wind tornado, and she summoned one herself, but before their battle destroyed the whole village. Dryas stopped the fight, and told everyone that it was just a fraction of the total strength she had. She wanted to give her knowledge about being a spirit, so the elders welcomed her into the village with open heart, and even held a feast in her name. For some days, Rio helped her control her magic, and Dominic managed to build a portable stone house for him that he could carry in his space-time cache. There were only 2 days left until he left, so Sarah told him to spend the rest of his time with Latifa. While taking a bath, he thought that he was focusing too much on training Asia, and neglected his sister, so they decided to do what two loving siblings do in an anime, take a fucking bath together. While she was washing his back, Latifa asked if Haruto was his name in his previous life, and told him that there was someone on the bus that she wished to be her own brother. But the bus got into an accident, and she ended up here. Rio told her that he used to take the same bus, and she was happy that he actually turned out to be the best brother. When the time of his departure arrived, Ursula gave him a teleportation crystal that would allow him to come back to this village instantly. And Sildora gave him an earpin that would allow him to change his hair color and hide his identity. Together with Asia, Rio went on his journey back to meet Celia, while Charles told her to get her downstairs ready for their upcoming wedding. In the year 1000 of the Holy Era, Rio returned to the royal capital of the Beltram Kingdom, and changed his hair color so nobody would be able to recognize him. At night, he went to the academy secretly with Asia, and went to the basement to visit Celia's research room. Remembering all the good times he had with her, Rio smiled and opened the door, but he was shocked as the room was empty. To find out about where she had gone, Asia used a hypnotizing spell on the researcher next door and made him reveal where she was. The researcher told them that Celia was in the royal palace and was about to be wed with the captain of the house of Duke Arbor, Charles. Rio was shocked to learn that Celia was about to be wed to the person that beat him to the brink of death. So the researcher told him that the kingdom of Beltram suffered a crushing defeat by the Proxia Empire, and the royal family's power was lost. But the House of Duke Arbor managed to commence negotiations for peace with the Proxia Empire. Since the royal family had fled the empire, they had to rally themselves to the House of Count Clare to gain power, so the marriage between Charles and Celia was decided. Since the wedding ceremony was tomorrow, Rio wanted to meet with Celia, but he realized that the defenses would be tighter than she would be, so Asia offered to investigate Celia's whereabouts by using her spirit form. There were a lot of guards around every inch of the palace, but since she was in a room, Rio managed to get in undetected by flying there. Celia felt like she was about to become the property of a degenerate man for the rest of her life, and wished to see Rio for the last time. But since he hadn't come, she was about to burn the letter that she received from Rio, when suddenly, the door creaked open, and Rio stepped in to fulfill his promise to come back to her once again. She told Rio that he had grown even taller and handsome, but Rio told her that she was still as flat as ever.
What did he say?
Rio was still the toxic bitch that she remembered, but she felt happy that he was finally back, and told him that he was strong and gallant. Like the old times, she wanted to have tea with him, but Rio didn't care about that and asked if the wedding was something she wanted. She pretended that the wedding wasn't forced and told him that Charles was chivalrous and kind towards women. However, Rio doubted her, so she asked if he would marry her instead and take her somewhere to live the rest of his life with her. As Rio was processing what she said, Celia told him that she was just goofing around, so he should forget about what she said. Despite being happy that she finally met him, she made him leave his room and cried in happiness that she finally got to meet him for the last time. But she didn't want to let him get caught up in her mess. Rio wasn't able to find out about her true feelings and wanted to know more about what was motivating this wedding. So Aisha offered to help him out and told him that she would always be at his side and he could come to her for help anytime he wanted. The next morning, Rias arrived for the wedding and Charles apologized for not giving him a proper welcome. But Rias didn't have any problem with it. While he was talking with Charles, he noticed the presence of a strong spirit and headed out to investigate it. After he went away, Charles arrived at Celia's tent to look at his bride and told her to use this opportunity to get to know his other 6 wives. The first wife, Tennyson, wanted to make things clear from the start. Even though she was the daughter of a count and she ranked superior than them, she would still be at the very bottom of the wife hierarchy when she would be married to Charles. So Tennyson wanted her to do just as they would tell her to and obey her orders. Princess Christina noticed how the wives were treating her, so she went up to Celia and told the wives to go away since she wanted to speak to her in private. Meeting a familiar face made Celia feel a bit better, and Christina apologized to her since this wedding was forced to be held because of the incompetence of the royal family. At the academy, Celia always had a smile on her face and seemed happy, but Christina felt like she took the smile away from her face, so she vowed to do everything in her power to help Celia. The wedding finally began, and everyone was filled with joy seeing the wedding parade, but Celia was the only one who didn't have a smile on her face. Charles held onto her hand and told her that he would deepen their relationship tonight by going deep inside her. He looked forward to the moment they would kiss to swear the oath of their marriage, and Celia couldn't do anything except put a fake smile on her face. Out of nowhere, Aisha talked to Celia using telepathy and told her that she was a friend of Rio's when she panicked. She told Celia to look to her right, and when she did, she saw Rio amongst the crowd and cried as he was the last person she wanted to see right now. Seeing her cry, Charles asked about what happened to her, and she told him that she couldn't help but cry happy tears thinking about their marriage. She tried talking to Aisha again, but received no reply back, and wondered if all of that was just a fantasy. When the parade reached its destination, Celia was about to hold Charles's hand, when suddenly, an alarm for an intruder was raised, and Rio made his way through the royal army. The soldiers got into position to stop him, but he yeeted all of them away with his wind magic. The mages began shooting photon bullets at Rio, but he kept dodging all of them, and jumped over the troops until he approached the elite guards of the kingdom. Charles told Celia not to worry, as there was no way that the intruder could defeat those elite guards. But he got shocked when he saw Rio clapping all of their cheeks. After defeating the guards, Rio dealt a devastating punch in Charles's guts and did what a student does when he meets his teacher, holding a knife at her neck. Celia's father panicked, but Vanessa stopped her as they didn't want to provoke the insurgent. Rio talked with Celia using telepathy and told her to remain calm and focus the words in her mind so they would reach him. He threatened to pull out Charles's spine if anyone approached him, and told Celia that it was all an act. Since they don't have much time, he wanted to get back to business, and once again asked Celia if being married to Charles was her choice, and told her that he would put an end to this wedding instantly if she wanted him to. Celia told him that he was being really dominant, so he told her that he was about to turn this shit into 50 Shades of Grey. He doesn't want to stand by and lose another person he cherished, only to regret it for the rest of his life, as once something is lost, it would never come back again. But even so, he reminded her that she still had time to decide if she wanted this marriage. Celia didn't want to put her feelings above all else and cause everyone trouble, but wondered if it was the right thing to do. Rio didn't know the answer to that, but he knew that she wouldn't have such a sad look on her face if she wanted this marriage, and Celia asked what he would do if she cancelled her marriage. So Rio told her that he would take her far away and run from this palace, and by doing that, no blame would fall on her family. Celia finally got the courage to ask him to take her away, so Rio held her in his arms and ran away. Charles panicked and told the guards to go after him, but Alfred wasn't happy with that decision, as he knew that he would just jump above them. The mages started to use their photon bullets on him again, but Rio dodged all of them with his wind magic. Rias watched this drama unfold and wondered if Rio was the same kid from the Royal Academy who could use spirit arts, so to test him out, he launched a huge ball of dark energy towards Rio, but he easily dodged it, and ran again with Celia after the dust cloud settled. While mages flying on griffins chased after Rio, Charles told the troops to immediately go after him, but Alfred took command of the troops and ordered them to spread around the capital. Charles lashed out at him and asked who gave him the authority to command the troops, but Alfred told his sorry ass to shut the fuck up and asked if he knew anything about the attacker. Charles thought that he could be someone who had some trouble with him in the past, so Alfred told him that's literally everyone in the whole city.
It's facts! It's facts! It's not facts. These facts are not facts.
Rio kept on running away from the griffins and told Celia to hold him tight, but she was enjoying the strokes from his piss rocket and told the destroyer of chastity to run even faster. As he jumped from roof to roof, he told Celia that he would be passing her to Aisha while he would play decoy and buy time, so he dropped in an alleyway and gave her to Aisha. When he went back to the roofs, the mages noticed that Celia was missing, and since the alleyway he dropped into was closed at the end, they sent out a flare to alert the other units. But all this was exactly what Rio had planned. The major started to fire their photon bullets at him, but he continued to dodge them and jumped from roof to drop in front of the ground troops. He carved everyone's faces with his kicks and bullied the living fuck out of them. But the backup troops arrived while the mages shot their magic at him from the sky. The elite guards attacked him with their swords, but they were no match for him, so Alfred arrived and told them to get the fuck out of here while he would battle the fuck boy alone. He unsheathed his great sword and attacked Rio, making him realize how strong he was. They continued to trade blows, and Rio noticed a magical formula that was casted on his sword. Alfred attacked Rio with an overhead strike, and the ground beneath his feet literally shattered with the impact of his blow. Since he was being pushed back and this fight was going nowhere, he launched a piercing attack that nearly took off his head. But Rio managed to dodge it at the last second and counterattacked by hitting him with his fist. Alfred wondered why he would attack him with his fist when he could have just killed him at that moment with his blades, and thought maybe Rio was underestimating him, so he charged up his ultimate attack and destroyed everything in front of him. If Rio took the full force of that blow, there would be no trace of him left. But Alfred had an odd feeling that the attack didn't hit him, so just to be sure, he ordered his troops to search the surrounding area. As the girls waited for him, the atmosphere grew menacing, but Rio finally reached Celia and Aisha, who were waiting for him outside the city. Seeing Rio, Celia immediately went to hug him but tripped on Rio, so Rio told her that if she had better cushioning and wasn't as flat as a surfboard, she would have just bounced off him. There was a look of shock on her face, so he asked Celia if she wanted to go back, as there was still time. But Celia was processing this sudden change of events and wanted to spend the rest of her life with him, so she thanked Rio for kidnapping her. Rio promised to always make her happy, and they both bowed to each other in respect, when suddenly, terrifying light beams came from the heaven into the earth, and Aisha felt a piece of Miharu coming back into her. She realized that some people from Rio's original world had come into this world and begged Rio to help them. Meanwhile, a group of girls, including Miharu, had arrived into this world and noticed that there was no service on their phones. Some goons arrived at their location and kidnapped them. Rio had found a smartphone and went to the goons to ask them if they saw anything like this, but the goon pretended that he wasn't aware of it. However, Rio knew that he was lying, as the girls were shouting for someone to help them, so he cut all of the goons into tiny pieces and rescued the two girls. He asked if there was anyone else besides them, and the girls pointed at a nearby cart, so Rio went to the cart and broke the lock, only to meet the love of his past life once again. Set your heart ablaze, go beyond your limits, and watch this next video.